Okay, hi everybody. So I'm going to try to make this as close to an experience as being in the classroom as I can. So I am not a content creator, but I will do the best that I can and we'll see how it goes. So anyway, I am making a video for these guys because I couldn't find one. So like I said, here we go and we'll see what happens. Okay, so anywho, we're gonna set those aside. So like I said in class, we are using 18 gauge wire and 26 gauge wire. So these are Parawire brand, like everything that you've been using in class. I get mine directly from parawire.com. I obviously am not sponsored by them, but you can also buy these from Amazon as well. I have the prices written on mine of what I pay per inch because I use this to calculate for the pieces that I sell. So anywho, I already have my 26 gauge lengths cut. These are about, I think probably 45 to 50 inches long. Go with 50 inches because it's always better to have more than not enough. And so I will cut my 18 gauge for you here in the video. Okay, so sorry about that. So go ahead and run the wire through your fingers like usual. Kind of straighten it out as best you can. And we're going to use our usual suspects for tools. We've got cutters, round nose, and our chain nose pliers. So I set these two guys aside for right now. And on my board here, each one of these little squares is 1/2 inch. So I know that by lining this up here, I have 1, 2, 3 inches. Okay. And I can actually double check here with my measuring device. So see, 3 inches right there. So again, use your cutters and snip. And then let's get our next 3-inch piece. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3 inches. Measure it out and snip. Okay, so now I'm going to set my 18 gauge aside and I'm going to set my 26 gauge aside for now. So remember, those are the sizes we're working with. So I'm going to get those out of the way for the time being. Okay. Sorry, a little bit of extra wire from a separate project. Okay, so we're going to take our first little piece of wire here, measure out 1 inch. Okay, I'm gonna line up my ruler with the square so it's easier for you guys to see. And then you're going to take your round nose pliers, measure out 1 inch, take the tip of those round nose pliers, put it at your 1 inch mark, then take this, bend it over at an angle. Okay, move your pliers so you're gripping about halfway down on your pliers. You're grabbing on the short piece of wire right here. You're going to take your wire, fold it over your round nose pliers, adjust, and there's our loop, just like we did in class. There's the guy's head, there's his body, there's the one arm of our hangman. Okay, so we're going to set these aside for now. And we're going to our chain nose pliers. So remember, take your chain nose pliers. I'm going to grab the head of our little hangman guy. And we're going to take his arm, make a scarf. Sounds a little weird when I say it out loud like that, doesn't it? We're going to wrap this around 2 times. I know this little end can be kind of sharp and scratchy, so if you need to, you can take your round nose pliers, grip onto that end, and pull it around. Okay, come on. There we go. Okay, once you've got your 2 wraps made, take your cutters. You're going to snip off that end. Now remember, grab your ends, catch your ends so they don't go flying. See, I'm putting my thumb over the end so it just stays put somewhere. It didn't go flying. That's the important part. I don't know where it went. Anyway, we're going to go back to our chain nose pliers. And as always, squish that little end down. Okay. Adjust my loop a little bit. Okay, and there's our wrapped loop. So now, we're going to make the fold at the other end here. Take your chain nose pliers, you can grab the tip of the wire with the tip of your pliers. Oh, there's my end. Okay, and here at home, I have a jar for all my little bits and pieces. See? That's where I've got all my little bits and pieces here at home. Okay, so end of the wire, tip of your pliers. We're just going to fold this over. So we've got a little hook right there. Then you're going to take your pliers, and it's probably going to slip. So just take your time. We're going to very gently, very carefully. See, it slipped. Squeeze that end down. See, slipped again. Okay, well, at least that time that it slipped, it was already done. Okay, so there is our branch. So now that we've got our foundation branch made, now we can take our little wire. So just take one of those 26 gauge wires. Okay, give yourself an end up here to hang on to. Do a couple wraps. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't matter how many, just to get your wrap started, and then squeeze it down tight with your thumbnail, or if you don't have very good nails, you can use your pliers to squish that down that way. Okay? I like to use my thumbnails just because it's nice and handy and it works well for me. So, we're going to keep wrapping for a bit. Okay, I think I'm going to go a little bit farther. Okay, because just like I said in class, you're going to need 5 leaves for each earring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 flowers and 3 seed beads for the centers. Okay? So we're wrapping down for a little ways before we add on our first leaf. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, if you want to get your own materials for these flowers and these leaves I got from Michael's. You can also find seed beads there. And yeah, I would recommend getting the wire from Amazon. And you can get parawire from Amazon as well. Okay, so once you've got your wraps down far enough before you put the leaves on, okay, these are what I'm going to use for this particular pair. Okay, these leaves I also got from Amazon, or I also got from Michael's. These flowers I actually got from a set that I got from Amazon. So you can't find these from Michael's, but you can find some different flowers, and you can get these kind of funky colored leaves, so they're really fun. Now for the leaves, there are several different styles of beads that you can use. They all work with the same concept. These have a little hole across the side, so side to side. The ones that we had in class, like these, they had the little hole up here. You can also find beads like this that are drilled straight through, okay? Right through the middle of the bead like this. These also work. These particular beads is what I did for this pair. So you see on the back, it's got the little wire coming through the side, on the back side of the flower. So you still thread it on the same way that we did in class. When you fold your wire over, the wire actually shows on the back side of the bead. It's totally fine. Okay, they still work. These beads, excuse me, these beads that we had in class, we just threaded it through, folded it over. Okay, works great. These beads that are from the side, okay, same concept as what we did in class. So I'm going to thread my bead on, and I will put a list of the materials that you need for this in the description for this video. So if you forget what you need, don't worry about it. I'll put it in the video description. And I'll even put where you can find these things. Okay, so now that I've got my bead on, I've got my leaf where I want it. I'll set these aside for the moment. Okay, I'm going to kind of tilt it up a little bit so that it's facing the direction that I want it to face. Okay, so I've got my bead in position. Kind of hold it in place. Do a couple wraps with my wire to lock it in. Scoot that down with my nail. I'm going to take my bead and I'm going to twist it, because this is what gives us the stem for our leaf. Okay, so see, I've got my leaf, there's my little stem. So we've got our first leaf on the branch. All the rest of them are going to go exactly the same way. So go ahead and do your wraps. Periodically push them together with your pliers or with your nail. Okay, now this particular design that I'm showing you has 5 leaves like this. If you don't have enough space, you can just do 4. If you want to squeeze in more leaves and do 6, go for it. This is entirely your own creation. You can do these however you want to. But I am demonstrating this with 5, just like I did in the class. Okay, so wrap a little bit farther till I feel like I've gone far enough. I think that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to thread on my next leaf. So grab your leaf, thread it on your 26 gauge wire, hold it where you want it to end up, fold your wire down. That's a little bit much of a stem. Pull it down a little bit more. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now, doing a couple wraps to anchor it. So got our anchor wraps. Go ahead and squeeze that down. And a couple more anchor wraps. Squeeze those down. Twist your bead into place. Don't do too many twists or you're going to break your wire. And there's my second leaf. And just keep going until you get to the end to do your fifth leaf. Same process each time. If you want to count your wraps in between your leaves, that's awesome. Go for it. I applaud you. Me, I like to go with ish. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to thread on my next leaf. So that's the beauty of handmade art. It's not perfect. We are not machines. This is not mass production. Handmade is not perfect. Handmade is homemade, and homemade is not perfection. All right, so do my anchoring wraps. There you go. And do my twist to anchor my leaf down. Okay. And keep going with my wraps. Maybe I'll get a few new followers out of this. Maybe someday I'll actually post a bunch of videos and I'll be a famous content creator on YouTube. I doubt it. But if it ever happens, you can say, hey, I was one of her first students. I knew her when. But yeah, don't count on it. But it sounds fun, right? Okay. Go ahead and fold your wire into place. Ooh, there's going to be a nice big gap between this one and the bottom. That's okay. Like I said, homemade is not perfection. Homemade is made with love by the hands of somebody who cares. Machines don't have feelings. Humans do. That didn't make much sense, but that's okay. And when you get to your last one, just go ahead and keep wrapping until just before you get to the end of your branch. Okay, so see, just before the end of my branch. Now, I'm threading on my last leaf. That's okay. Maybe I'll have 2 flowers here closer. We'll see how it comes out. Okay. Putting the bend in for my last leaf. I'm actually going to put a couple wraps down here at the end to anchor this one right before the end of my branch. Okay. I'm going to twist my leaf. Remember, not so many twists that your wire breaks. But if it does, I can show you a trick for that too. Okay, so now we have all of our leaves on. So now's when we start to add on the flowers. Some of the pretty parts. Well, the leaves are pretty too. Okay, so and you just kind of loosely wrap back up until, well, you want to put your first flowers. I think I'm going to put my first flower right here. So what you're going to do, take the end of your tiny wire and you're going to thread on through the back of your flower. Once you get your flower on, you're going to thread on a seed bead. It's going to end up being the center of your flower. So we've got our flower and our seed bead on there. See? Now, you're going to take the end of our little wire here and you're going to thread it not through the seed bead. Okay, we can actually let the seed bead come up here out of the way. Just through the center of the flower. Now, see the wire that's going into the bottom of my flower is on this side of the branch. The wire that's coming out of the bottom of my flower needs to go on the other side of my branch. This is what helps hold the flower on the bottom and nice and central. Okay, so now we're going to hold our flower down and pull this wire through. And see how I've got my seed bead on there? Right there. So we're going to pull our wire through. And then see, that seed bead becomes the center of our flower, and that helps hold it, helps anchor it to the branch. All right, keep bumping my camera. One of these days I'll figure this out. Okay, so now you can keep wrapping. Nice and big. Okay, I think that is where I want to put my next flower. I'll go a little farther. Right there. So that's where I want to put my second flower. So now, just like before, had a little bend in the end of my wire. That's okay. I can just run it through my fingers, straighten it back out. Take my flower, thread it on through the bottom of the bead, through the center, string that on. Then we're going to take a seed bead, string that on because that's going to be the center of our flower. Go ahead and run those down. And you're going to take the end of your wire. Remember, not through the seed bead. We can let that guy get out of the way. Just through the center of the flower. And I need to get my wire on the opposite end of my branch. See? The wire going up through the bottom of my flower is on this side. So the wire end that's coming back down out of the bottom of the flower needs to be on the opposite side. So, let's see if I can figure out how to zoom in if you guys can see that. Okay, see? The wire that's coming up through the bottom of the flower is on this side. The wire that's coming back out is on this side of the branch. Okay, I hope you guys can kind of see that there. Okay. Maybe I'll leave this zoomed in so you can see it a little bit better. So now, pull the end, that little wire. Okay. Where's my seed bead? There's my seed bead. I like to kind of keep this at the end of the loop so it stays out of the way. So see, I'm holding my flower up against my branch. And I'm gently tugging that wire until my center bead is nice and tight.
Go.
Hi, so yeah, technical difficulties happened. Anyway, I used that opportunity to keep going and finish up with the rest of my flowers and to charge my phone because that was a technical difficulty that happened too. My phone died. So anyway, I put on my third flower and kept on going and made this kind of messy up here. But I also, in starting my next branch, had the perfect opportunity because I didn't like how I had this last leaf on. So I went ahead and twisted it until, uh-oh, it broke. So what happens if you twisted it so much that you break your leaf? Well, this is what you do. So go ahead, take your leaf off, grab your wire cutters, and we're going to trim off this little end. Okay. See, I didn't lose this one. Haha. Okay. Put that. If you slightly wet the end of your finger, it helps pick up these little ends. So this one goes in the recycle jar. Now, now what do we do? Let's pretend this is all the way off, like I just yanked it off. Okay, so as always, you're going to squish that little end down. And I'm going to kind of twist it on. This is called burnishing. So what that does is it makes it nice and smooth and tight up against your project. Okay, so now I'm going to take this end that got broken off. I'm going to hold it up here so I've got a little bit of an end, and I'm just going to twist it back on. So now that I've got it back on again, I can rethread on my bead. And this is true anytime you're coiling like this. Just put your wire back on, hold it in place, and just start going again as if nothing had happened. And then I can, after I have my leaf on and everything's re-anchored, I can just trim this off and pretend like nothing happened. So I'm going to give this leaf a nice long stem this time. Anchor it at the bottom of my branch, just like I did last time. And now I can trim off this end. See, I got it. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap it back up a little ways. This time I can twist my leaf, make my stem, and not twist it too far. Yeah, because this time I like where that's at. Okay, so now this time I'm going to put my first flower right down here at the end of my branch. So now let's see. Another issue that I had with the previous video is I was nice and zoomed in, but I had a terrible time staying in this frame. So I'm going to try really hard to make sure that I stay in frame this time. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see me nice and close. Thread my flower on from the back. Thread on my seed bead. Okay, it is very challenging trying to do this while watching yourself through a video screen. Now I understand what content creators go through. So, okay, hold your flower down. Let that little seed bead get out of the way. Where is it? There it is. Thread your wire back through the center of your flower. Make sure that your wires are on opposite sides of the branch. See? The wire going into the bottom of the flower is on this side. The wire coming out of the flower is on this side, right there, opposite side of the branch, helps it to anchor it better. Okay. Now, I can grab that end. Trying really hard to stay in frame this time. And tug that little end down. Okay, see how this is getting a bend in it? That makes it hard to pull through. So what you can do is kind of work your finger in there, make it a bigger loop, and that makes it easier to pull your wire down through the center of your flower. And then just tug it till it's snug. Oh, see, this is what happens when you end up with the wire on both sides of the branch. You end up getting this really funky little loosey-goosey bit like that. So see, perfect opportunity. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my bead back up. Make sure that my wire really is on the opposite side this time. Okay, make my loop bigger. There. Tug that flower down, tug that bead down, see? So now it's anchored like it should be. Ha-ha, it worked. Okay. So now we're gonna go a little bit farther up our stem. Just like before, this is where I'm gonna put my second flower this time. Okay, and I think I'm gonna keep that bead, that leaf, right down there at the end. Yeah, that looks kind of organic. We'll do that. Okay. So, thread on my second flower. Again, straighten out the bend in my wire, because bends happened. Take my flower bead, thread it on through the back, trying really hard to stay in frame. Grab a seed bead. Maybe. Possibly. There it goes. Okay. Thread your seed bead on. Okay, remember, keep the seed bead out of the way so we can let it slide back down the wire. Feed your wire through the center of just your flower, making sure that your wire end is on the opposite side of the branch. See? Let's see, can I get, there it goes. So the wire is going in from this side, coming out on this side. Hope you guys can see that. I keep saying this because it really is important. And then slowly tug that little 26 gauge. And I've almost got a kink in it. Kind of work that kink until it's out. And then tug it tight. Okay, now no wonder that's misbehaving. That leaf is on the wrong side of the branch. No wonder it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. Okay. Now that looks better. Okay. I apologize if I'm getting out of frame. said I'm not a content creator. I'm just doing the best that I can. Okay. Now, our third flower. So got our flower threaded on. Threading on the seed bead. Making sure our seed bead is out of the way. Trying to feed it through the center of the flower. I'm actually going to grab my pliers this time because this is starting to get a little stiff. Putting it on the opposite side. See? That's my wire going in. That's my wire coming out. Snug my flower down to the branch. Tugging my 26 gauge tight. Okay. And then we're going to just keep wrapping this up. And I've got a whole lot of 26 gauge left over. So I'm going to use it to make a messy part of the top of my branch like this, because that makes it look a little bit more organic and natural like I did on the first one. Okay, so just get crazy with it. You can use up the last of your wire. You can make, sorry, I was off camera there. But yeah, get crazy with it. Make it look messy. Make it look like a natural branch. You can use up all of your wire, or you can leave it nice and tidy if you want to do that too. But I think it makes it look more like an organic branch by doing this. So, once I've got it the way that I want it to look, sorry about that, you can take what's left, and what I like to do is you can take this last end, and I'm going to feed it through my loop to make sure that it's nice and anchored. This is something that I didn't actually tell you guys in class because I forgot to mention it. So see, I've got a little loop that goes through the eye where my earring hook is going to attach right there. But that helps anchor it so it's less likely to come unraveled. So, sorry about that. I forgot to show you that little trick in class. So, once you get that done, take your cutters, trim off your end. Squish that little end down. And there's an earring. Now I need to do the same thing on this first one that I made. Trim that end. Okay, and I need to anchor this one. So I'm going to feed it through my loop to anchor it. And straighten out that kink. So there. I don't know if I can get it to focus. There, that's kind of focused. But anyway, you can see it wrapped through the loop right there. And then trim off that end. And squish that down. Okay, I had another end in there somewhere. Just want to make sure there's nothing loose sticking out. Okay. So that is my pair of earrings. Ta-da! I hope this wasn't too bad, and I hope this won't chase you off from coming back and seeing me during fourth quarter. So anyway, take care. Hope to see you again. Bye!